Welcome, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started on day 5 of Synchronous Online Teaching Strategies. I'll go ahead and share the link again. Let's see. Here it is in the chat box if you need it. And today I'm going to work with you all on the technical side of things, like how do you do this on Google Slides. I encourage you today to multitask. On the one side, when I'm bringing up new content and you want to learn how to do it, that you focus on that part. But if you find that like, hey, I already know how to do this part, I want to see how else I can stretch myself, that you feel the freedom to not have to follow along with me today. Today's going to be a little bit more step by step. I'm happy to take questions in the moment as they come, and I hope that after today you will be able to incorporate all the great ideas for math teaching in a synchronous environment and actually feel confident in being able to create them on your own. Alrighty, so I am also sharing my slides within Collaborate, so that way I can walk you through, where to click and how to do all the different things. As a reminder, on slide 2, everything you've seen in these sessions will be available on my website. After today, all of the blank slide templates from all 5 of these sessions will also be available, including each and every individual slide. If you find that you're having trouble on the website finding things, feel free to send me an email. Just let me know how I can help. And let's head on down to successes and celebrations. Any new successes from yesterday? If you were able to try out anything on your own or just successes being outside on a wonderful day, go ahead and put them in here. Who watched the Scooby-Doo movie, and would you or would you not recommend it to everyone else?
I watched it with Hunter. Hunter, my son, who is now college junior, I guess, has watched every single Scooby-Doo that's ever come out. So that was released today, and we watched it, and it's horrible. So unless you're a Scooby-Doo completist, you don't need to watch it. But it was horrible in a way that made us laugh a lot. So
Very cool. Tina, what are you excited to do when school is out?
I mean, maybe nothing for just a little bit. Maybe do nothing for about a week.
That sounds just glorious. Let me know if you want other side things to do. I could fill up your time.
Well, we start our geometry class in June 2nd, so that'll keep me busy.
Right, you won't have too much time. Awesome. Who's working one-on-one through Google Slides with an L student, and how's it going? What do you wish you had?
It went pretty well today. We were working through the assignment and I kind of guided her through a few questions and then she worked on others as I kind of helped offer corrections and guidance.
Lovely. You're going to see a tip today that might be incredibly useful for working with Ls or anyone who could really use your directions read aloud to them. So hopefully that'll be there. All right, and congrats to the person who has the twins. Nice job with the grades. All righty, we're going to jump right in. Again, please self-differentiate. If you find yourself already knowing how to do something, you don't need to sit and follow along with it. Go ahead and see how you might tweak it to work for you, or see how you might include a slide that you can use on your last week. So here we go. We're going to look at some of the tech tips here. On slide 4, these yellow slides are just the beginnings. They are just to show you where we are in in place of all these slides because you're going to actually create your own slideshow. Um, slide 5 and 6 are duplicates. Come and check out slide 5 and 6. And in previous sessions, we had talked about Own a Space, where students can just double click and start typing in the box, and that they have their own box. We're going to start off by just practicing what it's like to create your text box, fill it, change the line color and the line weight. There are 3 slides here, 5 and 6 already have some to get started with, and slide 7's totally blank. It's a place for you to put them. So you can grab the text box and create those. But another really cool tip is you can even grab the shapes. So if you grab a shape and you put it in, that is also a text box, and if students double click it, it works. That way you can have things like curved lines. They can type in ovals and circles. I'll create another new slide just so there's room on slide 8. I typed in somebody else's banner. Feel free to delete my stuff, but I like how you use that little banner there. And here's some kind of tips that I've gotten over the years in doing this is if you supply students with a small space, they typically write a very synthesized and short answer. If you give students a really large space, they will typically write a little bit more, or you can start to bring on this norm of when you see a large space, I'm expecting you to write more. So the idea here is when you give students this template, like I have on slide 5 and 6, with places for them to type, that you're going to get more student voice. And so if you are, let's say you're in geometry and you're doing a 2-column proof here, or maybe you're not even doing 2-column, but you're just trying to get them from the beginning to the end and like what are the steps involved. Giving them a blank place to be able to explain their rationale from getting from one part to the other part. All right, if you think you got the hang of this, you know how to insert the text boxes, change the colors, create a template. You can show me that you're ready to move on by moving on to slide 9. But take your time if you're still exploring this. All right, it looks like most people are down there, so I'm going to keep moving along. This session is being recorded, so I've got the steps involved, and I'll be able to support you all with the recording if you have questions. So the next thing we're going to do is learn to copy slides so that you can edit your own set. This is particularly useful if your team is, let's say, making a master copy of what's going to be happening in Algebra 1, but you know your own students, or maybe you just want to tweak it a little bit, or you just want to have different sections for the 5 class periods you're teaching. This can be particularly useful. And you're going to go ahead and do this now, because the other steps, there's just not room for us all to practice in one slideshow. I'm going to show the directions on the Collaborate screen, but again, self-differentiate. Please don't sit bored in here because you already know how to do something. Do it bigger and better and badder. So here I am. I'm going to go up to the File button, and I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to hit Entire Presentation. Now this will work just fine for you if you are currently signed into Google. Sometimes it requires you to be signed into Google. And so you might need to do that sign in part first. But then this becomes your own copy that's saved to your drive, and it belongs to you. You're now the owner of this. You can make all the changes to it. So once you do that copy, you're going to rename it and hit OK, and then that is now your private copy to make changes to, that right now nobody else is seeing unless you choose to share it with them. Again, you might need to log into Google ahead of time because it wants to know, where do I save this copy to? And at this point, I know many people will now be working in their own private copy of this slideshow. I'm going to keep going through, but please, if you have a question on something, use the raise hand feature. Let's work on all the tech things as they come up. I'm going to head down to slide 12 and showcase a really neat tool for when you want students to follow along with you. So again, I'm on slide 12, and this is something that's pretty simple but can make a big impact if you have students who need to kind of follow along, and that's using the highlight ability. So if I were to read this morning message to you, I'd start here and I'd say, "Good morning. Today is May 15th, 2020. I hope that you are excited to learn some new tech tools. How might you use the highlight tool in reading directions to your students?" From Teresa. And what you'll notice is, as I was reading that, an entire line was being highlighted at a time. That is highlighted for everybody's screen, so it can be incredibly useful for them following along if you're reading directions out loud, or you're just trying to pay attention to what line of the directions that you happen to be working on. The trick to that is holding down the shift and pressing the down arrow. So you'll click on something, and when you hold the shift key, it selects that whole line with that down arrow. Go ahead and practice that either on your own set of slides or on my set of slides. If everyone's using my set, it'll be kind of tough to see, but you can also practice on your own set, that other tab that you just made. And what you're doing now, I can see that also. So even though you're the one highlighting it, I see it highlighted, which can be especially nice when you're trying to tell your students, does everyone see where I'm talking right now? I'm talking about this line. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and you can type them in the chat box. You can turn on your mic and ask in real time. And yes, this is especially nice for English language learners. I use this all the time with English language learners and students who are at a reading level at or below third grade, because it can help them to follow along and not have to decode while they're reading. Yes, this will help with read aloud as well. Laura, if you're doing it on your own slideshow, I cannot see it unless you were to share it with me, which you would have the capability to do, but you won't do it right now. If you do it on the main slide, I can see it. Mike asks, is it always blue? No, it's not. And I don't know the rhyme or reason of why it changes colors, but each person would get their own color. So if I was in a small group, my color might be blue, and Mike, you might have red, and Jennifer, you might have yellow. And so it would show where we are in our highlights. All right, I'm going to head to slide 13 and talk about cloning objects. If you need me to slow down, speed up, if you have questions, please be sure to raise your hand or type them in the chat box. Some of you all were interested in cloning objects. There's some things that you should be aware with cloning objects. And that is, if you do a lot of copy and pasting, it can make the computer lag. It can slow it down because it's trying to process all these images. But there is a nice little way around it, and I have that way around on slide 14. So whether you're at your own slides or you're on my slide, slide 14. And in this example, I might want to ask my students, do you know how to write a function for this growing pattern, something that we did earlier? And my students could take these little smiley faces and be like, all right, I know this one. I'm not really sure about this one over here. I'm not really sure about this one. And they can move those emojis around. But in terms of making an infinite clone, those of you with a smartboard are probably looking for that button. But there's actually a little trick that you need to do the infinite clones. And using these steps over here, you'll be able to work that trick. So essentially you would take the image that you want and hit Control D a whole bunch of times. That copy and paste it in a way that does not lag your computer. Very important. And you can either select them all like this, but this ends up taking forever. Or you can Control all it. But there's a cool little button in the right click. You can align it horizontally and you can align it vertically. And what that does is it stacks them all up on top of each other. And now that infinite clone is really not infinite. It has about 60 or 25 or however many smiley faces you decided to Control D. There's room on slide 15 for you to practice also. You can practice on your own copy. And we'll spend about 5 minutes here just practicing that infinite clone to make sure that everyone knows how to do it. Laura asked, would I usually do the cloning before or after you put other things to the slide? I typically do the cloning first so that I can just hit Control A and select everything. Um, as some of you are noticing, if you're on the same screen as somebody else doing it, Control A even selects all of their stuff too. You can get around it with the selection rectangle, which I'll show you on the screen right now. By using this little rectangle, you can select only some things, and then you can do the alignment. About 1 more minute playing around with the cloning tool. Alrighty. Again, I am making recordings of this. I will move it into a nice, short, sweet little video so you can keep practicing it. Mike, I will add, if you want to delete my text box out, you'll be able to do it without that there. I'm going to head to slide 16. Pat, if you look at my screen, the selection tool is this little arrow, and you just draw a rectangle to select the pieces you want to select. Alrighty, so here's a fun trick. On slide 17, if you click on My Directions for the student, they will actually take you to Google Translate, and it will read those directions out loud in English, and it will read the directions out loud to you in your home language. You can select from tons and tons of home languages. This is incredibly useful for any student who needs support with a read aloud, whether it be English or their home language. I've already created a video on how to do it, so there's a link there that will take you to the video so that you can watch it, and then we'll take some time to practice how to link to Google Translate, and the trick is so that it remembers your directions in English and your home language. we'll continue to practice this for just a couple of minutes. On slide 18, there's space for you to try your own. You can try and link it and have it save so that it'll be a read aloud. All right, if you all can give me some feedback in the chat box, if you were successful with that, if you have any questions. It is nice to be able to change it into any language and have it read to you, because even some of our students who speak other languages have needs for it to be read aloud in their home language also. Excellent. Again, that video is there for you. You can return to it as often as you need so that you can make that option available. I'm going to move into the next one, slide 19, where you're linking URLs to images and text. I hear that many of you are creating your own videos for students, and you can actually put those videos in Google Slides a variety of different ways. I prefer to link them there so that students can still keep the Google Slides open. They can make it larger, which is useful for different devices that they're using. So I'm on slide 20. And I made this cute link to this cute little video about Pete the cat. I love my white shoes. I was working with a group of elementary teachers on this one. And sometimes I'll add a picture of it. But if you click my word YouTube, you'll see that there is indeed a link to it. And you all can do the same thing. You can link your videos that way. And the important thing to know about linking is how to get that linking tool up. So I'm on Collaborate. If you want to follow along with me, if you want to try it on your own, go for it. I start by clicking the image, and then up on the toolbar is the link button. By clicking that link button, it will give you a space to type in whatever it is you're linking. And then it will be linked there. Whenever somebody clicks on it, it'll come up. So again, you click on the image, the little link button, and that's how you can get it in there. take a minute to practice that. You can feel free to change the link on my Pete the Cat photo to be something else. There is also a short video that explains how to do it if you prefer video. We'll spend about 1 more minute on that strategy of linking things. If you're successful, give me a thumbs up in the chat box or let me know that you've done it. If you have questions, please let me know. Excellent. Alrighty. We're going to keep on moving along here. On slide 22, I'm going to talk about locking slides. This can be especially useful if you are having students complete something and you don't want them moving their responses around on the page. So, for example, if you join me on slide 23, this was an activity that I had planned for kindergartners. They read that Pete the Cat book about the different colored shoes. And in the book, there were 4 colors that his shoes were turning: red, blue, brown, and white. Well, I didn't want them to be moving this red box around because then they were going to move it on top of somebody's and mess up the whole slideshow. So as you can see here, they can't. It is locked in place. But they can still move their picture. And so this is how they were giving their opinion. They would find their picture and move it to the box that they had wanted, but they can't move the colors. And that's because I locked it in the background. And the way you lock things in the background is, first of all, you create the slide that you want to lock. And then you make a screen capture of the image, and it's just the background. For directions on how to do that, visit slide 24. And I'm also going to do it right here on this slide, so you can also follow along with me. So suppose I want to create a template where I have 3 arrows that I want students to be able to write in or move the smiley faces to. But I don't want them to move the arrows. I want the arrows to stay there. So in this case, I have created my background. I want the 3 arrows. I don't want them to have access to move those arrows. And I'm going to move these tech tips just a little bit out of the way. I'm going to scoot them over a bit, but still keep them there so you can see. By going to File, and I'm following these directions right here, File, download a PNG image of the current slide. What this is going to do is it's going to save my slide as an image. That is suddenly incredibly useful because now I want to insert the image here. So I don't need these arrows anymore. I'm going to hit this background button. And instead of making the background a beautiful color, which can be quite nice, I'm going to make it that image. So I'll choose my image. And now this is an image, and the students cannot move the arrows. They'll be able to type. At this point, I might even clone this little starburst button. So suppose I want to clone this. Now the students can move the starbursts onto the arrows, but they can't move the arrows because the starbursts are now interactive and the arrows are an image stuck in the background that is not interactive. So these steps will take you through it. I encourage you to, I'll create a new slide here for you all who are on the screen, or if you have your own copy, try to make something. Save it as a PNG and then insert it as the background so that no one can edit it or move it. I've made plenty of blank slides for you. You can find a spot and try it out. I'm seeing lots of really cool shapes here, images that you have. The PNG likely saved in your downloads folder. That's what most computers are set to. So for me, when I hit choose image, I would hit, these are, oh, I guess you can't see that. I would usually look into downloads to find it. All right, folks, we are going to move into our last strategy here, and then I'll have time for other comments and questions that you all might have, as well as figuring out how to get you all the recordings from these sessions. I am on the second to last slide. And if you're on your own copy, it'll be a different number than mine because I've added some blank slides as we went along. But the second to last slide says there's many ways of sharing a slide. In fact, there's 7 different ways. And this can be a bit annoying if you were unfamiliar of all the different ways, or incredibly powerful if you know them. So you can share things by a public link. And what I mean by that is once you give out the link, your students can put that link anywhere, including Instagram, Reddit, you name it. And then random folks can just go on in and start adding to your slides in the middle of class. If that amount of security bothers you, you might choose the private email version. That's where you type in the student's school email address that is associated with them, and then they get the ability to write on the slides. And when they type on it, it actually shows, like my name is up here, that you can see it being me, not some anonymous aardvark or whatever the public anonymous part was. So there are times when I do like to share public links, but I also want educators to know that kids are wicked smart. And so for security reasons, you might want to do it by private email. When you share it, students could either only view it, they can comment on it, or what you all have been doing since the very beginning is edit. And the way you share it for edit is you click that share area. I do it with a link so anyone can be the editor, but you could also do viewer or commenter. If you wanted to do privately, you can set up the email addresses, or you can even import a CVS file here with all your email addresses, and it will share it with the individual person. Finally, there is a force copy, which can be incredibly nice if, let's say, you are the team leader and you want to create the template slides, but you don't want everyone else to be editing them. You can make it a forced copy with the steps on the side here. So I've already mentioned that you can share it with the link, but by editing the very end of the link to say the word copy, it will force anybody who clicks that link to make their own private copy of the document. So maybe you're creating an assessment. You have 20 questions on it, and you want to send it out to your students. When they click this copy link, it's going to force them to make their own copy, which they would name their name, do all the work on it, and upload it back to however you have your students upload. So there you go, folks. Again, I know these are a ton of tips, a ton of tools, and sometimes it can feel like you're drinking water from a fire hose, but I also hope that you're feeling empowered and confident in knowing that you are one step ahead of your students. At this point, I'm going to take questions that you all might have, and I encourage you to be patient with yourself as you continue to try and learn all these little tech tools. I will have all the recordings for you all. I'll chat with the central office to figure out where they would like these located. And I hope that these tips and tricks will help you to be great online teachers. If you have questions, I'll take them on the virtual parking lot. Sure thing, everyone. Happy online learning. You've got this. Yes, and if anyone needs any steps repeated, I'm happy to go over them now. I'll do the force copy. So in order to do that, I'm going to go up to the share button and I am going to copy this link with everyone. And then I'm going to paste it, but I'm going to edit the link. So this is the link that you would normally do, but the last part of it, I'm going to edit this to say the word copy. As soon as I do, if you click on that, it's going to force me to make a copy. It is not even going to let me see it until I make my own copy. But then when I do make my own copy, it is totally mine. It belongs to me. And I'm able to make my own edits, which is especially useful if you're giving your students an assessment and you don't want them to edit your document. You don't want them to put their work on it. To force them to copy it and put their own work on it, and then they can submit it. Well, folks, I see there's just a couple of people left. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Happy to still support you even after this.